Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for May 6th. May 6th is the 126th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, 127th in leap years, with 239 days remaining to the end of the year. Today's word is cadence. Cadence is a noun, and that means the beat, time, or measure of rhythmical motion or activity, a rhythmic sequence or flow of sounds in a language, rhythm or a flow of words or music in a sequence that is regular or steady. Cadence may also mean a regular and repeated pattern of activity. A couple of examples might be, as the runner hit her stride, her breathing fell into a steady cadence, syncing with the rhythm of her footsteps, or the poet's words flowed with the graceful cadence, captivating listeners with their musicality and precision. The word cadence comes to us from Middle English, Latin before that. First known use of the word cadence is in the 1300s. Cadence. The word cadence was suggested by Odyssey viewer Easy9. Thanks, Easy9. And if you have a word you'd like us to explore in this Word of the Day segment, drop it in the comments. We'll take a look at it. And with that, the first issue of the New York Herald was published on May 6, 1835. James Gordon Bennett Sr. was the publisher, and while he liked to say that the paper would not get involved in politics, insisting that the paper would support no party, be the agent of no faction or coterie, and that they cared nothing for any election or any candidate from president down to constable, he certainly was not above sensational coverage of other subjects. Mr. Bennett liked to say that the function of a newspaper is not to instruct, but to startle and amuse. And by 1845, the Herald was the most popular and profitable daily newspaper in the United States. He turned control of the newspaper over to his son, James Gordon Bennett Jr., in 1867, and under Jr.'s control, the paper financially supported Henry Morton Stanley's expeditions into Africa to find the explorer David Livingstone, with a successful conclusion, and the ill-fated expedition of George W. DeLong to the Arctic region. In the vein of sensationalism, in 1874, the Herald published a lengthy article about a massive zoo escape in New York's Central Park Zoo, resulting in human fatalities, and only if one read all the way to the end of the article across several pages did the reader learn that the entire story was a fabrication, and it wasn't even April Fool's Day. The paper changed hands in 1918, merging with the New York Tribune and becoming the New York Herald Tribune, whose final publication was issued in 1966. That area of New York City known as Herald Square is named after the New York Herald newspaper. The New York Herald building, which was completed in 1908, occupied the north side of the square and was adorned with a sculpture commemorating the Bennetts. The statue of Minerva, the bell ringers, and the owls included a clock that sounded every hour with bell ringing. The Herald building was demolished in 1921 to make room for other development, but they did save the sculpture and installed it on the north side of Herald Square in 1940. They stopped the sound of the bell ringing, though. And when you hear the song, Give My Regards to Broadway, with the lyrics, Remember Me to Herald Square, that's what they're talking about, Herald Square, named after the New York Herald newspaper. Interestingly, the Herald's rival, New York Times Square, is located north of Herald Square. This is the birthday of American singer, songwriter, and guitarist John Flansburgh, born May 6, 1960 in Lexington, Massachusetts. He's one half of the duo that comprises the alternative rock band They Might Be Giants, which he formed with his friend John Linnell in 1982. The two, by the way, tried on a couple of different names for the band before they settled on They Might Be Giants, and they got that name from a 1971 movie called They Might Be Giants, which in turn is taken from the notion of how Don Quixote mistook windmills for evil giants. They might be giants. A perfect exemplar of their whimsical approach to subject matter. In addition to their usual albums, They Might Be Giants have made children's albums, and their music is featured in all sorts of popular culture, like their Grammy Award-winning song Boss of Me, which came to be the theme song of the TV series Malcolm in the Middle. Still alive and still working, John Flansburgh turned 64 in 2024. John Flansburgh. A couple years ago, I talked about the sacking of Rome, Henry VIII's Bibles, the Palace of Versailles, Sigmund Freud, Henry David Thoreau, the Eiffel Tower, Orson Welles, Babe Ruth, and a few other things. I'll leave a link to that episode in case you'd like to check it out. Today's song is Istanbul, not Constantinople. This is a novelty song written in 1953 on the 500th anniversary of the fall of Constantinople to the Ottomans. Interestingly, that takes place later this month, and I've made a note in my calendar so that we can remember to talk about it then. But today we're talking about the song. Written in 1953, as I said, by Jimmy Kennedy and Nat Simon, it's a humorous little ditty about the official renaming of Constantinople to Istanbul. It was originally recorded by a Canadian quartet called the Four Lads, and it was their first gold record. The Four Lads, by the way, also recorded the 1955 hits Moments to Remember and No Not Much. Istanbul, not Constantinople, has enjoyed a good number of cover versions, not least of which is one by the alternative rock band They Might Be Giants. Released on their 1990 album Flood, this version is in a faster pace than the original recording and is featured in several animated pieces from MTV's Liquid Television, Tiny Toon Adventures, and an episode of The Simpsons, as well as a 1992 thriller called Black Magic and a Netflix series called The Umbrella Academy. Istanbul, not Constantinople. I've found links to the Four Lads version and, of course, They Might Be Giants version, and those are in the description. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share this video with a link in your email, messaging, or social media. If you enjoy this series, you can check out the playlist that contains these videos. I'll put a link to that in the description. That description lives on YouTube, so for other platforms, I'll include a link to my blog page that's called No Really. You can also find me on Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey. All those links in that description. Alrighty, that's all I can think of right now. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Alrighty, back to work. I think we got it this time.